Good day everyone, so hope you're doing really well. In today's video we'll be reviewing some really advanced Nilou Bloom tips and tricks for related spiral bursts. Hopefully you'll enjoy that. The format for today's video is pretty simple. I'm going to show you free showcases here with the C6 Nilou Bloom team, and then we'll discuss some of the smaller details. Now if you want me to do a C0 run, and I've got an account to do it with C0 units, just let me know, but I think most people would just be interested in the general principles and what are some of the things that you could use to gain a very good and decent score. Contrary to what some people might say, Nilou Bloom teams are still very much alive and kicking. The only real competition that they're currently facing is if you've got a C6 Nouvelette, because that spin to win technology is just such a it's just so crazy. But in any case, from my perspective, you can still, with clever gameplay, positioning, understanding enemy AI manipulations, get a lot of good success with your Nilou Bloom teams, and it's really quite fun to play with them. It's unlike other teams which can sometimes feel like a bit cheesy. These teams actually are fun. There's a lot of thinking that's involved. You're not just trying to abuse Vaporize or some of these other reactions. You actually have to think about the steps and your cooldowns and ability management, and that's why I like running these teams, even though they might be in the strict sense less optimal than some of the other teams. But in any case, so hopefully you'll join me for this review and you'll find this interesting and useful. So let's begin. Begin by using Nahida's elemental skill tap ability. This allows us to hit both of the enemies, one in the front and at the back there, and this now means that we can trigger Nilou's Bloom on the enemy right here, which is going to be so important when we start with this team. So what you'll see now is that I'm pushing this enemy very subtly. Hopefully you can caught on there, but I'm holding the W key here with Nilou, pushing the one enemy against the other so that Nilou's ring can hit that enemy as well in the background and hopefully take care of him so that my Kokomi can cast her E ability in an uninterrupted manner. I honestly challenge you to try and play this with this exact same setup, and you'll notice that if you don't take care of the enemy at the back, or you don't stagger it with a Dendro Core, he can actually interrupt you casting your abilities here, which of course is going to take time, and we don't like that. So here is a cast of Kokomi's Jellyfish. It's going to obviously take care of the enemy shield, which is quickly going to set up here with Nahida. And once the enemy's been taken care of, we quickly do a quick little hold E, because Nahida's tap E won't reach everyone. Tri-Karma, 2 quick Tri-Karma Oblivion hits here, and then we go into Nilou's Elemental Burst, taking care of all of these enemies at the front, but also the Abyss Mage there right at the back. Nilou's Elemental Burst obviously having a very wide range, and this allows us to take care of all the enemies, trigger the Dendro Cores here, and because we're triggering the core here, all of these enemies are getting maximum Dendro Core damage, and I'm obviously using Nahida's normal attacks or the rest of her Tri-Karma Oblivion just to keep up the Dendro damage. Notice here that I've still got Kokomi's Jellyfish active, and whilst we go here into the new mob in the background, I'm quickly going to tap E with Nahida, not to waste time, and the moment I swap here to Kokomi, something very beautiful happens. So the final tick of her Jellyfish is going to come up in just a moment, and that final tick is going to allow me to reset my elemental skill because I'm carrying the sacrificial fragments, and you'll notice right here, see this little wave effect at the bottom. That was the final tick of Kokomi's Jellyfish, and by having this obviously reset, I can now once again trigger Kokomi's Jellyfish again and hit all of these enemies at once. Just before we carry on, one of the things that's so beautiful about Kokomi's Jellyfish is the fact that it doesn't move. So if you look here at where we were earlier, the enemies here were obviously all in a static position, and we were right here at the back. So if Kokomi's Jellyfish moved position closer to me as the active character, there was actually then a risk that we would not have been able to get enough Hydro to break down the Abyss Mage's shield here. So this is a case, and there are many cases, especially in Nilou Bloom teams, where having the Jellyfish stationary can be incredibly powerful, especially if you're on one side of the Abyss, enemies on the other side, but your Jellyfish still keeps on ticking, because the Jellyfish and Nahida's E will allow you to keep on triggering Dendro Cores, and if you can just trigger one Dendro Core anywhere on the map, then all of the connected enemies will be hit again by Dendro from Nahida's E, and that just allows you you to set up for more Dendro cores. So there's a lot of subtlety when it comes to a team like this, and that's just why I love the Nilou Bloom teams so much. In any case, so to get back to where we were here with Kokomi. We tagged the enemies in an AoE, and now we're just going to wait until the Pyrolector's health is going to be taken care of. So we swap to our tank. This is Nilou with the largest HP pool. We obviously can see that we can refresh her E ability, and even if the enemy started attacking and so on, Nilou's got a very high interruption to resistance whilst casting her E, and this is going to be important in just a bit. So what this means is that we can just face tank the damage, if any, and obviously we now took care of the enemies, and it's just now a case of applying as much Hydra as you can in a short interval. You'll notice here I'm using Yelan's Breakthrough Bulb, and the moment the Breakthrough Bulbs on her C6 are done, we swap to Kokomi, getting those extra instances of Hydra with her normal attacks, and there is the first floor. Right, so here on the second floor you have to be really careful. So one of the little tips and tricks that I can give you is to tilt your camera slightly upwards. So you just move your mouse slightly upwards here with Nahida, because what's going to happen is the moment she goes into her elemental skill, you typically have a tendency for the camera angle to be pointing downwards. So if you're doing a very fast little flick here, there is a real chance that these two enemies in the middle, that enemy and that enemy, might not be tagged. So I'm just going to play this again in absolute real speed so you can see what I'm doing with Nahida. So this is very quick when it comes to tagging the enemies, but it's so important that you tag them correctly, and the correct way is to slightly push up your camera whilst you're then obviously flicking around with your mouse, and then you can then tag the enemies. You can see here in slow-mo just how quick this is. Every one of these is just a little frame. Once we've hit the enemies, we also then unleash. So this is at the end of my little swing. On my mouse movement, I release Nahida's E ability so that I can overlap the animations playing out with me moving my mouse into the correct position. So this is just a very subtle little optimization when it comes to playing with the character. In any case, so what we're now going to do is set up here with Kokomi's Jellyfish, once again not just for this wave but for the next wave as well. And here comes that important Nilou tech that I talked about. So Nilou's elemental skill not only grants her the ability to have to cast her ability with lots of interruption, but it also allows you to interrupt the enemies, which is a very subtle little thing about Nilou that not a lot of people know. So the two enemies are now going to come and hit me here in the background. You'll see, hopefully, here you go, there's this little enemy, little wheel enemy. He's trying to hit me, but he is being blocked here by Nilou. So you can see there's Nilou at the back in slow-mo. She effectively, with her animation, is stopping these two enemies from running through her and losing position. So what happens is Nilou's elemental skill, with very careful timing, allows me to stop these enemies in their place, and then this obviously allows me to hit them with all of the Nilou Bloom team. So Nilou's ring and obviously Kokomi's Jellyfish, which is still ticking in the background, is now going to hit all of these three enemies that are clustered together. I avoid all damage by setting up with Nahida's elemental burst. And of course, as you can see right there, Nahida's elemental skill just came back online. So you can see there it's 0.4, and obviously it's now back. So the reason why it pops back like that very quickly is because the timer or the visuals haven't really matched the elemental burst timing, but that's just a little separate technical in-game glitch. In any case, Nahida's elemental skill is ready. Again, a quick tap E allows us now to go into Nilou's elemental burst, and then we're going to go into Yelan's elemental burst, effectively iframing everything that the enemies does to us, and also we can then dodge any Dendro core damage. So this is the key about playing Nilou Bloom teams. Use your skills early, and then the bulk of the damage that you take and that the enemy dishes out, you just iframe by cycling those bursts. And you can see here, we're just going to take care of the enemies, and once again, Nahida's tap E is available, so this is a lot quicker than hold E, and now we're just going to take care of the enemies very normally with Yelan here, do the book trick, gain all of the particles in the background. This means Yelan's elemental burst is now actually full, and then we just take care of the mobs with the breakthrough bulb. The breakthrough bulbs are AoE, so this allows me to hit one enemy, but it connects onto all of the other enemies in case you're curious. Right. So here is the final floor, and this is where I need to mention something very, very specific. As you can see, I'm starting here in the back. So I've turned Nahida 180. You can always start in any position you want when it comes to the spiral abyss. And once again, I'm going to flick my camera upwards, but this is a very tricky little flick that I'm going to do. So as Nahida winds up, I'm actually already pushing my camera to tag the enemies from the back. So here I am, and now I'm actually swinging almost like backwards. You can see there, that's like a full 360, which just guarantees me hitting or like tagging all the enemies. So just again, in slow motion, I've literally gone 360. So I've tagged that enemy, and now I've gone completely into reverse. And this is just the movement and the mouse flick. So I do a wide arc around with Nahida, and then a very short arc with the camera angle to reset my positioning, because where I want to be is exactly where this enemy is. I want to interrupt him with Kokomi's jellyfish, interrupt him with Nilou's elemental skill, and then obviously we're now going to do what I say we're always going to do with Nilou Bloom teams. We use our skills, and then we just constantly just use our elemental burst to do all the iframing. We dodge the enemies, we dodge the Dendrocore Bloom damage, we can quickly hit them here and just literally run through, and they're all taken care of just like that. This is the beauty of the Nilou Bloom teams. Quickly tag both of these enemies, and the final, you can see here Nahida's got a little flower here. This means her C6 is still active, so we're going to use her C6 to use Trikarma Oblivion on the two enemies since they're connected. This allows me to reduce the health of the enemy at the back, and of course take care of the health of the enemy here in the front. So what's very important now is, and just wait for the camera to change, is to have this enemy at the back come in, but also by taking care of this enemy in the front health, we are pushing him back. So naturally, when his health depletes, he's going to fall back by just naturally. He's just going to lose his positioning backwards, and this allows me to have a closer grouping of these two enemies without waiting too long for them to actually group up. We just make sure for a final time we refresh with Nahida's skill. So there you go, and then obviously Yelan is just going to try and take care of them. I wish Genshin Impact allowed us to target the enemies where our mouse cursor would have been, because it would have been so nice to use Yelan's final breakthrough bob to hit the enemy where my mouse is pointing instead of the enemy in the front, but that's just unfortunately how this game works. We're going to use Yelan's E skill to quickly cover the distance here with the enemies, and there we go, we're going to hit the enemy at the back here. Unfortunately, with the breakthrough bobs, you can see I got a couple of like 3 non-critical hits with 4 non-critical hits with a Yelan that's got over 80% crit rate. So that is incredibly unlucky on my side, but in any case, so luckily the refresh here with Kokomi and obviously the Nilou Bloom and whatever was enough to take care of him. And then right here at the end, all I can say is try and keep these enemies grouped up. You want to apply Hydro to both of them, whether you're using Yelan or Kokomi's burst or Kokomi's jellyfish, or whatever. You just want to try and keep them in an AoE so that any of these AoE hits will affect both. You can see the enemies have started to scatter a bit, so I didn't quite get the AoE on Yelan's breakthrough bulb, so that obviously meant that it took a bit longer to take care of these guys. But yeah, that is how you play Nilou Bloom teams. Here are some of the very advanced little things that you can do, some camera work tricks, some tricks when it comes to Nilou and how to use a skill. Ultimately, it's all about positioning and understanding how to generate the maximum amount of Dendrocores. If you do that, paired up with the enemy AI, you'll get so much success. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this very deep dive into it, and yeah, let me know what you think about this. If you want a C0 video, let me know and I'll record one and we can go over that. Alright, cheers.